morning to this fourth day, the online classes, the second semester, choice-based credit system, MA English students. So, hope the voice is clear. This audible. Okay, and so far I've taught you the 19th century English poetry, where John Keats, and then the 19th century prose and fiction, the way I taught you Wuthering Heights, and then I have also taught you a poem, you know by W.H. Harden. Yes, I mean yesterday, the Unknown Citizen, and today I'm going to teach you a play. If you go to hardcore 2.5, the paper 5, there you have this paper called comparative drama. In comparative drama, I'm going to teach you this play that is Louis Pirandello's Six Characters in Search of an Author. So it is an Italian play. So I'm going to teach you today. This play is a very important and a very interesting play. It is considered as a classic and a comedy play because here Louis Pirandello made an experiment. So what experiment does he do here? No, he used a concept called a play within a play, a drama within a drama. If the moment you get into this text, when you start reading this text, after that the character, they start creating another play. Inside there is another play. So this concept called play within a play, a drama within a drama concept, Louis Pirandello uses. So this is one thing. So today I'm going to teach you this text, comparative drama, where Louis Pirandello's that has to be pronounced as Louis. The spelling is like Lou, Luige. It's not a Logie, it's a Louis Pirandello. This is interesting text. So coming back to this. So why is this famous for? In theater, today I'm teaching you a drama. So far, poetry, a novel, and yes. And today I'm teaching you a play. When we talk about the play, especially this play that is six characters in search of an author, this concept called alienation effect. It is belong to this epic theater, because we categorize the plays in different forms. For example, we have Elizabethan plays, we have restoration plays, and we have absurd theater. In the same way, this play is considered. It belongs to this form norm called epic theater. Okay, like we have observed theater, observed, and Elizabethan theater and restoration theater and abbey theater. So this is considered as epic theater. So in this epic theater, there is one concept called alienation effect. So what is this alienation effect? Most of you are aware of this term. Alienation effect, in the sense, when you watch a drama, when you watch a play, as a characters, you're not supposed to be carried away by the emotional effect of actors. For example, you're watching a movie. The moment felt, the moment you feel their action, you start empathize towards them. Sometimes you also tend to cry, sometimes you feel very shocked, and you feel the sorry for their attitude, which means you're involved yourself with the characters. So alienation effect, it is something that you have to detach from that. It is just an entertainment purpose, it is just an action, and you're not supposed to be emotionally affected by the characters, the acting. So you have to detach yourself. You have to watch a play as an audience. Why I'm saying this? Because this play, it is meant for this concept called alienation effect. Effect, alienation effect. So you have to keep it in your mind. So in this play, what is important is, see, the modern writers like Pirandello and another writer called Bertolt Brecht, and you are aware of Bertolt Brecht, and even like uh, the Waiting for Godot writer, the Samuel Beckett. So they have this similar writing style in their the play writings. So Pirandello and the Brecht, they wanted the audience to be fully aware of reality. So this play, it deals with the concept called reality versus illusion. So reality versus illusion. So you're not supposed to be live in the world of illusion. Rather, you should be very practical, and you should you just analyze based on the facts and figures. So here, these two writers, they wanted their audience to be fully aware of the reality. Sorry for the interruption, dear student. There is some internet connection we have been facing, the problem we have been facing since a week. So I kindly request you to kindly bear with us for these technical problems. So I was talking about this. A student can just drop message whenever they have some query to ask. Okay, in the public chat. So in this play, there are the six characters. That is the father. The name is given as the father, the mother, the stepdaughter, the son, the boy, the child. So they are the six characters. Who are they? The one is the father, mother, stepdaughter, son, boy, and child. And there is another character because she doesn't belong to the family. She is other character. Her name is Madam Pace. So dear, yes, good. Yeah, some of you have replying it. Yes. So hope you got this point. So there are six characters. Who are they? I repeat: the father, the mother, the stepdaughter, son, boy, and child. There is another character called the Madam Pace. Okay, Madam Pace appears in the last scene. So now, coming back to this, see Louis Pirandello, text, six character in search of an author. As I told you, this is concept called a play within a play. It has three act in it, and here Pirandello is introducing a device of the theater within theater, as I told. So, six character in search of an author created Louis Pirandello an international reputation in the 1920s, and still the play by which is almost widely identified. So this play brought him kind of a reputation and an international reputation. And then, so here, this play, in what begins as a realistic play, he introduces six figures, six characters with an extraordinary theme. So the extraordinary theme for which he calls it as an artistic imagination. So Pirandello he uses his artistic imagination and to create a play within a play concept. So all this, when the play begins, there are some people, the manager, a stage decorator, and some unknown characters. They have been rehearsing some play. They have been rehearsing something. So this is how the play begins with an abrupt manner. So when we talk about the sixth character in Search of an Author, the play begins with an unconventional mode. Some unidentified characters, some people, they have been rehearsing some, the play. In middle of them, these six characters, stands before them, and they requested the manager, the director, they requested the manager that we have a story with us. If you allow us, we will going to demonstrate it. We are going to play a story. So please allow us to enact a play. So these six characters they requested, but whereas the manager doesn't agree because already there is rehearsal is going on. So how do we allow you people to perform? So in this way, an unconventional mode, in an abrupt manner, this play begins. So this you should keep in your mind. So these characters have arrived on the stage to find an author themselves. They say, we have a story. Let us perform a story. Because those were the days, there was no other entertainment except the theater, the play. That you know that. Drama has taken a very vital role during those days in the early, 20th century. 20th century. So, and someone who will give them the full of literary life that their original author has denied them. Already they have approached many people for a chance, but they were denied. But now they come to this rehearsal theater and they request the manager to give them a chance. But let us see whether the manager agreed them for giving a chance. Despite of lot of requisition, as long as they request a lot, then the manager decided to give a chance. Okay, we'll give you a chance because you said that you were denied earlier, and now we are giving you a chance. Okay, you just perform for a while and you disappear. So he gives them a chance. So now that's the reason why I told you there is a play within a play. There is a drama within a drama. So the play begins with these kind of interaction. You getting my point? So now when the when the manager, the stage manager allows them to perform, they begin a story. It's a very, very disappointed story. And after that, you people will feel that yes, what you said, that's the alienation effect. We have to be detached while watching a play because such is the character, such is the story of the six characters. ಅದು ನೋಡುಗರಿಗೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಒಂದು ಭಯವನ್ನ ತರಿಸುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಕತೆ, ತುಂಬಾ ಒಂದು ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಒಂದು ವ್ಯಥೆ ಪಡುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಕತೆ. ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಕಥೆಯನ್ನ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಈ 6 ಜನರು ಹೇಳಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಯಾರಪ್ಪ 6 ಜನರು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಇವರಿಗೆ ಹೆಸರಿಲ್ಲ ಇಲ್ಲಿ. There is no name is given. Just a father, mother, a stepdaughter, the son, boy, and a child. So these are the six characters. And then this is how the play begins in the first act. Okay, a group of actors are preparing to rehearsal for a pyramidal play. As I told you, there people are rehearsing here. Though while starting the rehearsal, they are interrupted by this arrival of the six characters. So these six characters come. The leader of the characters, the father, he informs the manager. So manager, give us. This is not the prosma. I'm teaching a drama called Six Characters in Search of an Author. ನಾನು ಬಹುಶಃ 10 ಸಲ ಹೇಳ್ದೆ ನಿಮಗೆ. It doesn't matter. Okay, because confusion. Why don't you give us a chance to perform a play here? So what happened? So he explained that the author who created them did not finish the story, and they therefore are unrealized characters who have not been fully brought to light. So we have been struggling. We have been struggling to catch a person to allow us to give a complete to this text, to this story. The manager tries to throw them out of the theater, but becomes more intrigued when they start to describe the story. The moment they narrated the story, the manager was impressed. So what is the story here? The story I start now. So the manager allowed them to perform on the stage. So all of them, they stand one by one. They started this story. They're enacting here. The father is an intellectual who married a woman. So the father, as I told you, there is no name is given. It is just a father. So the play begins. The play within a play begins like this. The father, he is an intellectual man. He's a well educated man, he is a knowledgeable person, and he married a woman, a peasant woman, a middle class woman. And things went very well until she fell in love with his male secretary. So this intellectual man, the father, has a secretary. So what happens? Everything was went very well. There's a well-knit family. They got the children. The family was very well, and they were running an excellent life. So what happened? Things went well until she fell in love with his male secretary. Whereas the woman, the mother, she fell in love with his own secretary. And what happens? And having know the information, he having become bored with her over the years, the father encouraged her to leave with his secretary. And he tolerated a number of time, but we understood that yes, they were in love. Probably in case if she bored with me, okay, you better stay with the secretary and you can just start a life afresh. Then they had one son. The father and the mother, they got married and they have one son. So what happens? The mother, he left the son along with the father and she went with secretary. Okay, and this is what happens in the act one. So what happens? Things went very well until she fell in love with his male secretary. Having become bored with her the years, the father encouraged her to live with the secretary. If you love him, you go along with him. So the father sends the lady away with the secretary, and whereas the son, the father. And she left. And then who becomes bitter for having been abandoned? So the son was very much angry with the mother because the mother left the boy. So the mother left the boy, and because the son was very unhappy with the mother because she left the boy. The mother starts a new family with the other man, that is the secretary, and has three children. Now he has three children with the she has the three children with the secretary. So I repeat again, the mother starts a new family, with the other man, the secretary, and has three children. And the father starts to miss her every day. The father started missing the mother because he heartfully, he fell in love with her and he got married and had a one son, but he had never So fine. So now it got connect again. So I was telling this, the she's after she separated from the father, she has she got married again, the secretary, and having three children, only the stepdaughter and the boy and a child. So this is how we come to know. And the father start miss the entire family because he literally loved them, and he is trusted us so much, but now he started missing the entire family and actively seeks out other children in order to watch them grow. Sometimes, he also go to the schools and he looks at them, though they are the stepchildren to him, he still love them. And then the stepdaughter recalled that he used to wait for her school in order to give her presents. Sometimes he goes to the stepdaughter and he used to give some presents. So the other man eventually moves away from the city with the family because the secretary comes to know that this father, he was coming quite often to the school to give them present, which he didn't like. So which he did not like, and he what happens, the secretary, he changed the place. He went to the different place to live. So the secretary eventually moves away from the city with the family, and the father loses track of them. So then the father, he loses the track. So he could not identify that the way the stepdaughter took the entire family away. So, are you getting the story? So this is the story that they are creating. They have been enacting on the stage. So one day, what happens after the other man dies? So the secretary dies. So then, who is the head of the family now? It's a mother. She has to take care of the entire, the family now, the three children. So one day the secretary dies. After he had taken them to the separate place, another place. The secretary dies, and the mother and the children return to the city. So now they have to find the job in order to live their life. And then she gets a job in a Madam Pace dress shop. Who? The mother, she gets a job, and a dress shop runs by Madam Pace. So she's an industrialist, and now we are introduced another character, Madam Pace. She's a very important character. After six characters, she appears as another character here. So what happened? So here, the Madam Pace, she also runs a brothel, a prostitute house. So here, forcefully, here the stepdaughter was sent to the brothel to be there as a prostitute. He was sent to the brothel, what Madam Pays running. So that is a very destitute and kind of, very a scary development took place, because their life in such a poverty stricken, and without doing anything, the stepdaughter, she had to be in the brothel, the prostitute house, which is run by Madam Pace. So this is a very drastic event took place here. Are you getting the connection? Yeah, you can just drop me a message as and when you feel to ask some question to me, please. Okay, this is how the play is going on. This is how these characters are narrating the story. And now, so I told you, some of you asked me what the title of the text. The title of the text is Six Characters in Search of an Author. If you go to your paper Hardcore 5 in second semester, you have this drama by Louis Pirandello. Is a writer, has written this. So what happened? One day, the father arrives to the Madam Pace brothel institution. So look at the the chains of event, the sudden turning in an incident, how it takes place. So one day, the father, he arrives the Madam Pace brothel institution. He goes there as a customer. He goes there and then sets him up with a daughter. And he couldn't even identify that is his stepdaughter, because there's a lot of age gap, and probably the year gap is also there, because long ago they have departed one another, and he couldn't identify her as a father. I mean, as a yeah, even he could not identify her as a stepdaughter. So does she. Even she couldn't even identify him. Such is the condition, and we can even logically ask many questions. She could have identified him as his own stepfather, but it is a play in a play. So such doubts are always there, and you can just ignore that. So what happened? One day, the father arrives the Madam Pace at the brothel institution, and where he confronted the stepdaughter. He confronted the stepdaughter, and he started to seduce her. When he started to seduce the own stepdaughter, what happened? They're interrupted when the mother sees him and screams out. Suddenly, the mother, she could identify that, yes, this is her husband. He's the one who is getting inside, and there inside there is her daughter. So he screams, and and the mother, she screams, and he stops the act. She screams out, and while the father try to seduce the stepdaughter, and he allows the stepdaughter and the entire family to be along with him. So he asked the reason that what had happened, why is the this kind of the cathartic condition, this condition has been brought out to them. And then the mother narrated that secretary dies, and they had to leave the life, and they were left in the lurch, and somehow they had to find a way, and this is how we are left with. And then the father feels so remorseful towards them, and he felt very sorry about the entire incident. And what happened? He decided to take the entire family along with him. Bunny, no, you can just come and stay with me. So he took the entire family. So what happened? And he allows the stepdaughter and the entire family to move with him, causing his son to resent from them for intruding in his life again. But whereas you look at the son, he's a son of mother and the father, the first son. Remember, so here he felt very angry because he should not have imagined. He thinks that he doesn't expect them to be with him. ನನ್ನ ತಂದೆ ಯಾಕಾದ್ರೂ ಕರ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದ್ರು ಇವ್ರನ್ನ ಅನ್ನೋ ರೀತಿ he feels so sorry about it. He feels so resent, and he feels so angry about the entire family members. He doesn't allow them to be with him. So that is one development. And he wasn't happy. The son was not happy, and intruding in his life. So the manager, he's watching. ಏನಪ್ಪಾ ಇದು ಈ ತರ ಆಕ್ಟ್ ಪರ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಇದು ಹಿಂಗೆ ಪರ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ? ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ದ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜರ್ ವಾಸ್ ಶಾಕ್ಡ್. These people are creating the story in a such a way. It is such a brilliant story they are narrating. ಈಗ ನಮಗೆ ಕೇಳುಗರಿಗೆ, ನಿಮಗೆ, ನಮಗೆ, the moment we hears it, we feel yes, something is happening. ಹಾಗನ್ಸಲ್ವ ನಿಮಗೆ? ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಕತೆ, ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಹಾಗೆ ಚಿತ್ರಿಸುವಂತಹ ರೀತಿ ದೇ ಪರ್ಫಾರ್ಮಿಂಗ್. ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಅ ವೆರಿ ಬ್ರಿಲಿಯಂಟ್ ಸ್ಟೋರಿ ದಟ್ ದೇ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಬಿನ್ ಡಿಪಿಕ್ಟಿಂಗ್. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಆ ಒಂದು ನಾಟಕ, ಈ ಪ್ಲೇ ಅನ್ನೋದಕ್ಕೆ, ಆಕ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಅನ್ನೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಾಧಾನ್ಯತೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ರು ಡ್ಯೂರಿಂಗ್ 19th century and 20th century, because that was the only source of entertainment to the people. So what happens here? The manager was shocked because what is this? ನಾವು ಅವ್ರಿಗೊಂದು ಅವಕಾಶ ಕೊಡಿ ಅಂತ ಇವರು ನಮ್ಮ ಕೇಳ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರು. We gave them a chance, but they are performing so well, because myself can't believe this. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಮಗೆ ಒಂದು ಪದ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ದರ್ ಇಸ್ ಒನ್ ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸ್, ಅ ಟರ್ಮ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ವಿಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಸಸ್ಪೆನ್ಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಡಿಸ್ಬಿಲೀಫ್. ಇದನ್ನ ನೀವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ತಿಳ್ಕೋಬೇಕು, ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ನೀವೆಲ್ಲ ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯದ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ. ಸಿನ್ಸ್ ಯು ಆರ್ ಲಿಟರೇಚರ್ ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್, ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಿ ನಿಮ್ಗೆಲ್ಲ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಿದೆ ಇದನ್ನ ಯಾರು ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು ಈ ಒಂದು ವಾಕ್ಯನ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. ವಿಲ್ಲಿಂಗ್ ಸಸ್ಪೆನ್ಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಡಿಸ್ಬಿಲೀಫ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಗೊತ್ತಾಯ್ತಾ? ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಎನಿವನ್ ಟೆಲ್ ಮಿ ದ who coined this word in literature? He's the one of the romantic poets. If you have studied the 19th century poetry, you can answer this question. So this word coined by whom? Any guess? It is coined by so you're not dropping any messages, probably you're not aware of this. So this sentence, the willing suspension of disbelief, it is introduced by none other than st coleridge. S.T. Coleridge is a romantic poet, and he, in his Ancient Mariner and other Kubla Khan, and he's known for his famous poems like Kubla Khan. No. Willing suspension disbeliefs is introduced by S.T. Coleridge. Okay. ಏನದರ ಅರ್ಥ? What do you mean by willing suspension of disbelief? ಅದರ ಅರ್ಥ, a reader, any reader, doesn't matter, you don't have to feel sorry. Okay, because most of you are not aware of this term, because you have to aware of these terms: willing suspension of disbelief. ಮತ್ತೆ ನಾನು ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ ಹೇಳಿದಾಗೆ, yes, Samuel Taylor Coleridge ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ ಹೇಳಿದಾಗೆ alienation effect. ಏಲಿನೇಷನ್ ಎಫೆಕ್ಟ್, ಮತ್ತು ಇದು ಈ ಎರಡೂ ಪದಗಳು, ಈ ಎರಡೂ ವಾಕ್ಯಗಳು, ಎರಡೂ ಸೆಂಟೆನ್ಸ್ಗಳು ನಿಮಗೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾದಂಥದ್ದು. The term alienation effect, I told you, as a character you are not supposed to be carried away. As as an audience, you are not supposed to be carried away by the emotional effect, the emotional actors, the performance. ಈಗ ನಮಗೆ the moment we listen this the moment we watch this play, how do we feel? We are involving ourselves. So ಅಂತ ಒಂದು involvement ಆಗಬಾರ್ದು. You should not supposed to be emotionally attacked by this, emotionally attached by this. Now you have to look at this play with a detached angle. So readers set aside their rational thoughts, accept the event. Willing suspension disbelief ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತು ಇದು, it will never happen. We always have a question, but still is we accept it. For example, there are many examples that, for example, willing suspension of disbelief. ಈಗ ನೀವಾಗ ಸೈನ್ಸ್ ಫಿಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳ್ತೀರಾ, ಆ ಸೈನ್ಸ್ ಫಿಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ ಆಗೋದು ನಿಜನಾ? No. For example, people they fly toward the sky and somebody dies from the sky. These are all you come across in science fiction. So ali, no, we can apply this term, that is willing suspension of disbelief. We know it can't be done because we are so rational, but despite we accept it because we know that it's a literature, it's a part of the fictional world. And then, so what happened? Coming back to this, the manager was very shocked because they're performing and acting such so well, and he finally stopped the actors and allowed this character, and he allows them to continue. And you wanted to stop them for for some clarification, and he was so curious, and he decided to go even a little further. Okay, you can continue. And then there is a final scene which takes place in the garden. You're getting the point, dear student. You're getting the point. So now we're in the garden scene. The way the manager changes the setting for the second scene. So they go to the garden. There is a father house, and right in front of the father house there is a big garden, and there the action takes place. So the mother approaches the son and tries to talk to him. The mother wants to talk to the son, but whereas the son is so resent, he doesn't want to talk to his mother because she is the one who left him in the lurch in the beginning and went with the secretary. And what happened? He doesn't want to talk to them because in the entire situation there is one drastic changes in the sense, and this person, that the son, he no longer make any kind of a compromise with anyone. He was very stern, and he doesn't talk to with this mother. And what happened? So in the garden there is a big fountain, there is a well, there is a big fountain in this in the garden. There is a What happened? The younger daughter, the child, it is almost drowning in the fountain, the well. He's almost going to fell in the fountain. And there the boy, there is another boy, he was also playing in the garden. He started rush towards the child which was drowning in the pond. No, it's a pond, the fountain. It's a very big pond, in fact. And he's runs towards this child to stop. In the process, he could not save the child. The child, fell in the pond and he died. And the boy, he rushes towards this child to save it, but he could not save it. So how to scare? What does he do? The boy, the young boy, there was a revolver. There was a revolver, and he took the revolver, and the boy shoots himself. So in the garden scene, in the right in front of the house of the father, there is a big fountain, the pond, um, and then there this incident took place. What incident? The mother is trying to talk to the son, but he doesn't reciprocate, and the child is drowning in the pond, and it could not be saved by the boy. Out of scare, the boy shoots himself because he could not save his own sister, I mean the child, and he shoots himself, and causing the mother screaming. And the mother screams and rushes towards this pond because the child it died. And the manager, you watching this entire scene. The manager is watching the entire scene, is unable to tell if it is still acting or if it is reality. ಅಲ್ಲಪ್ಪ ನಿಮ್ಗೆಲ್ಲ ಒಂದು ಚಾನ್ಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟೆ ಪ್ಲೇ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ, ಬಟ್ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಹೌ ಯು ಆರ್ ಪರ್ಫಾರ್ಮಿಂಗ್ ಇಟ್. ಯು ಆರ್ ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಯು ಆರ್ ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟಿಂಗ್ another world of play. So that is the reason it's a play within a play. And he feels so shocked, and whether it is a reality or an imagination. And fed up with the whole thing, he calls for the end of the rehearsal, and he said that, come, because okay, I gave you the chance and you people can go away. And now I allow other people, other characters, to continue the rehearsal. So this is where the drama ends. So all the characters, the child which drowned in the pond, it comes and stand on the stage, and the boy who shoots himself. Good. So you're saying that yes, even we also worrying as Same he felt. Yes, absolutely. So what happens when you're listening something, you try to attach yourself, emotionally attach with this performance, but you have to have a detached angle. That's what I've been telling. So by giving this kind of a story here, Louis Pirandello, he's giving the instruction to the entire humanity. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ನಾಟಕ ಅಂತ ಬಂದಾಗ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಜಸ್ಟ್ an entertainment, and you are not supposed to be immediately surrender yourself, involved with this performance, and you have to watch. And what happens here, so the son, he appears on the stage, the mother, he stands on the stage, the father stands, and the stepdaughter, the child, and the boy, and the everybody, they come and stand, and they said to this manager, how was the performance? And then just imagine how these characters are very desperate. These characters are very much desperate to perform. So giving a chance, the moment they got the chance, they grabbed it wholeheartedly, and they grabbed it from both the hands, and and they performed well, and they got the kudos, they were appreciated. So this is the the play, that is six characters in search of an author. So I have a question to ask you then, who is the author here? Six character in search of an author. The story, the created by these characters, they themselves are the author, because they created the story, right? They created the story, they themselves are the characters, the author. So six character in search of an author. So who is that author? They themselves. They have to make an inward eye, they have to make a a journey within to understand that. So everybody has that, everybody has that, everyone is the author for themselves. Everyone has a talented, everybody has the, everybody is an inbound genius, you know so that is the one thing that we understood. And this is the the play. If Hope you understood the entire play. It is a very small play with a three act, and I tried my best to give you the entire picture of the entire text. Hope you and understood and enjoyed the text. So now I have another poem, a very interesting poem. So if you have something to ask, you can just drop a message. So looking at that, I can answer your question. So, dear students, I've taught you this play and a novel and a poem, and now I'm teaching you another poem called Fernil. The Fernil by. Okay, yeah. Thank you. That you understood and you appreciated it. So I'm glad that you. So what you have to do now, you can make use of the study material given by the university, and immediately see once. So once the text is correct taught, immediately you people have to go to home and take this study material and immediately read and mark and identify with the points wise, and you write them in a neatly in a separate sheet, and you prepare for your exam. So that is important thing that you have to keep in your mind. Once the class is done, you have to immediately read the study materials, and you will certainly understand the concept. So uh, so all the points, like as I told you, the alienation effect, willing suspension of disbelief, and the epic theater, and the illusion and reality, all these components are very much applicable to this text, and you people have to keep in your mind and you read the text. So because of the time constraint, because I have other texts to teach here, so I'm going to the next poem, so that I can able to complete the text within given hour. So this text called the Fern Hill. It is there in your the paper. What is that paper? Three, paper three, which is that the paper three is you have 20th century English poetry, the way I taught you yesterday, Harden. So now I'm teaching you this poem called Fern Hill by Dylan Thomas. Okay, how does Pirandello explore the conflict between the real life and the dramatic form in the third act? So that's your question. So how does Pirandello explore the conflict between the real life and the dramatic form in the third act? In the real life, such things certainly do happen. When the child drowns in the pond, and somebody try to rescue the boy, rescue the child, and once you can't rescue the child, how will you behave? There are some incident. The boys also fell down. There are some incident where they, for example, it happens when it is sisters, brother, kith and kin. Remember, if something happened to somebody, they can't withstand, they also die. But what is very important is in the third act, about the real life incident, real life incident is much more, because the son, looking at the father, looking at the mother, he's not going to give any of his comment to his mother. He doesn't even ask her how you are. He's not going to compromise with the mother. He's not going to reconcile with the mother. He's very blunt. So does actual life too. There are people, if such things happen to them, and they will never look at either a brother, a sister, or the father or mother, whoever it is. Some people are so obstinate, tumba hata. So here the son is the same towards the mother, and the mother, she still feels remorseful, she's ready to compromise with the son, but whereas he doesn't. And so these are the conflict between real life and the dramatic form in the act 3. But I think the dramatic form is very important, because the way they performed, probably they perform such a way, and people, they don't even do in the actual life. For example, uh, their action is such that so powerful, so such a way, which captured in our eyes, so in a brilliant way they project their drama, their scene. This is a very interesting question, I appreciate it for this. So any other question? The probable question that you would ask me, that six characters in search of another, it explodes, for example, illusion and reality, discuss. Okay, otherwise, consider six characters in search of another as a play of alienation effect, that you character are not supposed to be carried away by the actions, by the performance. For example, probably after this class, tomorrow, probably when you are at home, wherever you are, probably somewhere in the back of your mind, you may remember this play. So we just attend this class, but it's emotionally affected us. I mean, this text certainly bothers everybody, because that is the power. And in fact, it gave Louis Pirandello as an international reputation. It gave him the international reputation. It brought him name and fame. Hope I gave you this a substantiated answer. And the one thing is very astonishing, that when the manager, observing, when he was witnessing their performance, and he was shocked in such a way that, how could how could you people create such a story? How can you create such a story and make us wondering? And that is the reaction that the manager gives, after he watched the entire performance. Okay. If it is fine, and I want to share some few ideas about this poem, so that tomorrow I'll take up another text. So this text is, as I told you, is fine. So shall I get into another poem? That's a Fernil, by Dylan Thomas. So Fernil, this is the poem. Let me talk about Dylan Thomas first, and then to the poem. So Dylan Thomas, he wrote his poem, and he's a contemporary of the T.S. Eliot and W.H. Harden. Yesterday I taught you. So he belonged to that, the contemporary writer. So during his short life of 39 years, he lived just 39 years, but his contribution is enormous. Though he belonged to this contemporary society of T.S. Eliot as well as W.H. Harden, uh, which theatrical issues are attacked in the second act of the play? And you have to do a little research on that. You think this is, you're asking a question on a theatrical issues. As I told you, it is an absurd theater. Okay, it's an absurd theater, an epic theater. Okay, where the identity crisis is very much. I told you all these this absurd theater, and especially this theater, epic theater, they have this concept called identity crisis. So, which theatrical issues are attacked in the second act of the play? So, in the second act of the play, not only in the second act, the first, second, and the third, in the entire play, there is the question of identity crisis. And this character, they're seeking for a author, they're seeking for a chance, and whereas the father is seeking for a compatibility of life, but he did not get it. And the identity, the survival issues to the mother and the daughter. And then everything is the questionable. Everything is stock attacks the notion called identity crisis. So that is the notion that we could see in all the acts. Okay, and that's one thing. And now coming back to this poem. So now we stopped about six characters in search of another. Coming back to the poem because intend to do complete my portion now. And from 19, there is also a contact program in our university headquarters. You people can come over there in person, and you can also have a discussion. All right? Yes, that's fine. This is one the obstacle in the online platform that we can't go and discuss a lot more because of time constraint. And so then this in there'll be a face-to-face classes interaction. You can just always welcome to have a discussion. So unlike T.S. Eliot and W.H. Harden, Dylan Thomas doesn't talk about the universal problem. For example, W.H. Harden yesterday poem, he talks about the common man condition, the problems of an individual. And T.S. Eliot talks about the how the old modern civilization degenerated, and there is no belief, there is no trust, and all that. So here, this person he does not talk about the objectivity, the universal messages. He talks about his own personal, the subjective, the personal incidents. So he lived just for 39 years. He had emerged as one of the greatest poets of his time. The born in 1914 in the most beautiful hilly region of England called Wales. So he imbibed the natural beauty and poetic inspiration from the region, Wales. Very important. He imbibed the spirit of a natural beauty by looking at the whale's natural beauty, and he imbibed some spirit, and he got the poetic inspiration from the whales. So he got the poetic inspiration. So come back to this, so that he's inspired from this nature, like Wordsworth we have, and he's also inspired by this the beauty of the nature. So what is this Fern Hill? Fern Hill ಏನಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ is the name of the farm of Dylan Thomas' aunt Anne Jones. ANN Anne Jones Jones. Anne Jones ಅಂತ ಅದು ಡಿಲನ್ ಥಾಮಸ್ನ ಆಂಟ್. ಆ ಮನೆಯ ಹೆಸರೇ ಫರ್ನಿಲ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. So Fernil, he's the name of the farm. It's a farm, belongs to Anne Jones. She's a Dylan Thomas aunt. So it's a very personal poem. So as a boy, Dylan Thomas passed many of his holidays on this farm with his affectionate and loving aunt. So during his holidays, he used to spend his time, in this farm with his affectionate and loving aunt. So it was a very golden time for him. He says that it's a very golden time for a golden time and life for him, and nowhere else did he enjoy such happiness and such freedom. So probably as you cross this, the childhood, when you get into the youth, you started confronting the problems of actual mundane life, adult lives. So here, the poem is a celebration of those happy days. So it's a reminiscence. It is a nostalgia. So his reminiscence senses the is is very memories of his aunt place farmhouse in Fernhill because he spent his holidays there. Got the point? Yes, fine. And the poem is a celebrations of those happy days which alas were gone forever, never to return. Look at that. He's repenting. He's repenting. Those days are gone by. Those are the best days that he had ever had. Those days have gone by. So that means the poet, he's in his prime youth, he's in his adulthood. So he's remembering his earlier memories. So now, then let us see how this poem talks about and how does it document us, memories. So this is how the poem begins with. The poem, the funnel begins like this. Now, as I was young, so the I, it is none other than the poet himself, and easy under the apple boughs, and he spent his times under the apple boughs, about the lilting house and the happy as the grass was green. So the poem begins with a very happy tone. So here, even before that, I must tell you, the Fernhill was published in 1946. Okay, in the book entitled called Deaths and Entrances. Okay, and this is where he published it. And here it shows Dylan's ability to give a natural background and the treatment of a nature. So he's giving a natural beauty, a description. And then the you know the poem has how many stanzas? It has around it has six stanza. Let us see how this poet he elaborates his the happy memories. And one more thing, that it is an autobiographical poem. Like we have Wordsworth, the prelude, Wordsworth prelude. Likewise, it is also very much autobiographical in nature. So there are the six stanza in the poem. Let us see what the first stanza talks about. The first stanza, I told you, the poem expresses the joy and the happiness. Okay, when Dylan Thomas spent his holidays at the house of his Aunt Jones. So this is point number one. And number two is, as a young boy, Dylan used to go to his aunt's farm near the Wales for summer vacation. And the poet says that he took great delight on the farm when he walked under the apple trees. While he walks on the apple trees, he gets a delight. He gets the greatest delight. The house of his aunt was not very charming, yet the house was not so pompous, was not so glorious, but yet it seemed to the poet the quite pleasant. The house, the farm of aunt was not so big or glorious, but it was a very sweet and pleasant. So we understand that the poet, he is a tendency in appreciating his aunt, appreciating the house, appreciating the surroundings, appreciating the trees, apple trees, apple boughs, and all that. Got the point? Yes. The house of his aunt was not very charming, yet it seemed to be quite sweet and pleasant. And the night on the farm and in the valley were very beautiful, because from the valley and the sky looked full of twinkling stars. So he tells that there were a lot of twinkling stars he could see when he looks at the valley, and when he nearby this the farmhouse. Now, what happens further? So, to him, the whole scene looks golden. The stars and the valley and the trees, for everything for him, it looks like a golden in color. So he stops a wagon, wagon in the sense a vehicle, the chariot. There is a wagon. He stops a wagon which is driven by the driver. What does he do after stopping the wagon, the vehicle? The driver stops the wagon and the poet rides it. He asks for a chance. I should also get into the wagon, the chariot. Take me along with. He requested the rider, and he gets inside. The driver helps him out, and he there. The field around him are full of apple trees. The poet walks loudly in the middle of the trees and the green plants and the flowers. There are a lot of green plants and the flowers. The rivers in the region are full of light and shine. So it looks such a bountiful or a beautiful picture, and that we come across in the first stanza. So the poet, he walks loudly in the middle of the tree and green plants and flowers, like a lord, like a king. He walks around the entire, trees and plants and valleys and hills, and with the help of the driver on the wagon, on the chariot, and he could see the green plants and the flowers. So the rivers in that region are full of light and shine. So the rivers, they're full of the full of light and shine. So this happens in the act. I mean, in this stanza one. In the stanza two, what happens? So I just give you in a nutshell. The poet again praises, probably now it's 58. Now we have left with a couple of minutes. So I do one thing. I stop at this stanza one. Remaining stanza two, three, four, and five and six, I'll tell you in the next class. So dear students, so the entire session, I taught you a play and I just began a poem. Um, and you people can you can just talk to me your phone, or during my official time, 10:30 to 5:30, the doubt that you have, the question that you have to clarify. But one thing, you all have to think about on how Pirandello, what is the intention of Pirandello? So that is a big question. You all have to remember, when you talk about six characters in search of an author, the purpose is important. I think the story doesn't important at all. So the why Pirandello, he deliberately, he writes this kind of a play. Why what made him to write such a play? What is his intention? His intention is that that was a day, when people, they embraced the theater activities, because that was the only source of income, the source of entertainment. So in that, then the everybody become a very genuine writer, artist. So keeping that in mind, and he's given a message to the entire clan of audience, that and you should be careful when creating a story, and how far it affects on the audience. So this is one thing. There are a lot of questions that come to your mind while reading this text. And especially this poem, that's a Fernil. It's a very typical Wordsworthian poem. Typical Wordsworthian poem. When you talk about a Wordsworthian poem, there is one feature. Okay, okay. There is one feature called a pantheism. Pantheism ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, one who surrenders to himself to the nature, one who glorifies the nature, one who thinks nature is the best, closest friend to him. So that pantheism attitude, we can also see in this poem. Okay, so in the next hour I'll complete the poem. So thank you. You have next class you attended. Thank you, people. I'm going to close the session.
Uh, Good afternoon, dear students. Sorry, good morning, dear students. It's still 11:30. Am I audible and visible? The final year, sorry, that second semester students, second semester MA English students. Am I audible and visible? Good morning, one and all. Yes, thank you. Good morning. Hello, sir. Happy morning, sir. Fine, thank you. Good morning to all the second semester MA English students, and welcome you all for the second session of fourth day contact classes, online contact classes. So today I'll be dealing with one important text called "The Wasteland." The Wasteland by Thomas Stern Eliot. Very, very important literary work in the 20th century literature. Very, very important work. It's there in our syllabus, The Wasteland. Okay. And why this particular poem is so popular. T.S. Eliot himself is again, T.S. Eliot is known as the one of the greatest English poet in 20th century English literature. In 20th century English literature, he was born in the year 1911. He was born as a poet in the year 1911, and he worked as he worked as an editor and also a columnist. Okay, in the initial days of his career, he has also written one of the famous poem called "The Love Song of Alfred J. Prufrock." Alfred J. Prufrock, Prufrock, the love song of Alfred J. Prufrock. And Eliot, had three major important incidents. Three major incidents in his life during 1914 to 1919. During 1914 to 1919, forced him to write a long poem like The Wasteland. The long poem like The Wasteland. The three important incidents of his life. The private trials forced him to take up huge task of writing a long poem, The Wasteland. First one is the first three out of three incident. The first incident was a kind of religious awakening. He experienced a kind of religious awakening during that period, during 1914 to 1919. At the same time, you should not forget that world history saw the First World War. The First World War happened between 1914 to took place between 1914 to 1918. Politically, there was a major incident happening in the global history. Okay, the World War took place between 1914 to 1918, and it's a very crucial period. And the first major incident was he experienced what a religious awakening. At the same time, there were problems of adaptation to a foreign city. There were problems of adaptation to foreign city, to a foreign city, and he moved to America at the later part of his career. The T.S. again Eliot, the poet, Eliot moved to America, and he considered history as a mistress who misled secular leaders, who betrayed them through the Great War. The Great War again misled the political, again even history, according to him, misled. Now, how come why did it happen? Why did the First World War happen? Due to the expansionism of Russia, the expansion attitude, the Tsar dynasty, okay, and also the First World War, the Second World War took place because of Japan invading Hawaii Island, again, and America attacking Japan. The Second World War took place. Even First War again, even Germany also had a role in Second World War. So there again, the political history you all know that. What were the reasons? Okay, that caused. What were the exact reasons behind the First World War? And he was not at all happy. Who T.S. Eliot? The Wasteland in the initial stage was first published in 1922. On October 1922, it was first published on October 1922 in the magazine called the Criterion. In the magazine called Criterion. In the same year, in the month of November, he also published he also published the same poem in another magazine called in another magazine called the Dial, Dial, the Dial. You know, the poem, again, the entire poem was composed at Margate, a place called Margate, Margate. Margate is the place, a seaside resort on the northeast coast of Kent, which faces France. Okay, the city the city Margate faces France. It is located in the north again, north to the northeast of England, and there he went there. Psychologically, he was suffering a lot. There were problems with his personal life. There was again he experienced a kind of nervous breakdown. The personal life, the external life, the social life, everything had a kind of devastating effect on his mind. Devastating effect on his mind. So what he does, he decides to go in search of a remote place where in an isolated place where he can spend a lonely again life. So he goes to a place called Margate, a seaside city located in the province called Kent, located in northeast part of England, okay, where he underwent rest and also medical treatment. He went there for on the medical advice. On the medical advice, he was under treatment because of his psychological distress, because of the mental distress or mental agony. Okay, for his nervous breakdown. For his nervous breakdown. So, the entire poem is the relief of a personal gloves against life. At the same time, for him, depicting the beautiful world is not essential part of poetry. So Eliot always considered that time has ripened enough to consider literature seriously. Seriously, he never likes the idea of writing poems on beautiful aspects of life. Like John Keats wrote a poem on the nightingale, isn't it? And Wordsworth wrote a poem on daffodils, whereas Alfred Tennyson, uh, not Tennyson, I think it's Shelley who wrote the poem called the Skylark. Okay, the Skylark. So poets in those days wrote poems on keeping the beautiful aspects of life as the element of discussion, as the concept of discussion. They wrote poems on only on beautiful aspects of life, only on beautiful aspects of life. By the time Eliot wrote this poem, there was rapid growth of cities. No, again, people started to move from rural places to cities. So urbanization. You can see the impact of industrialization, many new industries were set up in cities. People flocked, moved together from, again, they came in huge mass. They came in huge mass from rural areas where they were doing what? Agrarian, where they were involved in agrarian sector. Farming community, people from farming community came to cities to pick up jobs in industries. To pick up jobs in industries. You can see the impact science, scientific progress, development on industries, industries having an impact on rural life, industries having an impact on urbanization, urbanization having an impact on concretization, urbanization having an impact on overcrowded cities having an impact on scarcity, scarcity of space, scarcity of water, scarcity of electricity, shortage of food, everything, everything, again, every possible problem was created due to industrial revolution. It is not easy to create jobs for each and every one whomsoever flows from villages to cities. It is highly difficult, isn't it? So, very crucial period. No, the poets during Edwardian and Georgian era, after Victorian era, after 1901, it was King Edward and George who ruled England for few years. And Eliot was not at all happy with the poets who lived during that era because those poets wrote poems on rabbits, cuckoos, butterflies, which was not helping the society to overcome the real issues. So what are the real issues which I just spoke of? The real issues like industrialization, urbanization, concretization, okay, unemployment, poverty, scarcity, okay. So there are so many such problems, okay, which got reflected in European society, particularly which means particularly in England. England experienced such a social condition during that time. So for him, historical sense is a sense of timeless as well as the temporal that makes a writer traditional and also makes him actually conscious of time and his own contemporaneity. So at the same time, Eliot stresses on the significance of history, the significance of tradition. We read history so that we should not repeat history. History should not be repeated. That is what the saying is. History should not be repeated, history should be recreated. We learn history so that history should not repeat. We learn the history of two world wars. That is the reason why there is no such a thing like concept like having one more third world war, one more world war, which can be called as third world war. Because if the third world war takes place, nobody, including you and me, can survive. This world can be destroyed 3 times with the nuclear bombs kept in the arsenals of the great countries of the world, including India. So it's highly impossible. So what I mean to say is the wars, that is the reason why Eliot stresses on the importance of history. We have to learn history so that we should not repeat the history. Repeat history. So whatever that has happened in the time of Ashoka during Kalinga War, again, has man learned from history? So Ashoka learned that war creates what? Sheds so much of blood. War sheds so much of blood. That is what the naked truth that King Ashoka, the Emperor Ashoka, learnt after Kalinga War. So what happened after that? Ashoka took the path of Buddhism. Took the path of Buddhism. So as man learned anything from history, highly impossible. We have not learned anything from history. We are recreating history. We are repeating history. which is dangerous and which is not good for the entire humanity. At the same time, Eliot was influenced by two great books of anthropology. Two great books of anthropology. One is Jesse Weston's From Ritual to Romance, From Ritual to Romance, from Jesse, written by Jesse Weston. Jesse Weston's Ritual to Romance, and James Fraser's The Golden Bow. The Golden Bow, Boughe. The Golden Bow by James Fraser and Jesse Weston's From Ritual to Romance are the two great books which influenced anthropological books which influenced Eliot to write a poem on such a topic called the wasteland. Look at the title, the wasteland, the barren land. The entire poem it's translated in again to Kannada. It's available in Kannada. Banjaru Bhumi. V.L. Sheshagiri Rao has translated the poem, The Wasteland, as Banjaru Bhumi. It is there, available in Kannada also. So it's not the fertile land. It's not the fertile land that Eliot wants to speak about. So for which he borrows to retell the history of the world. To retell the history of the world, he borrows allusions, images, historical examples, mythological characters to come to the conclusion that this world is a wasteland. It's a barren land. Man has not learned anything from history, from tradition. Man should learn from tradition, should learn from history. So man has not learned anything from out of the history. Okay, so to come to that conclusion, Eliot uses so many religious, mythological, historical, literary examples, images, allusions, symbols, okay, to come to the proper conclusion. Okay, and the entire poem is in broken pieces. You find scattered images, scattered allusions. What you have to do, it's like broken glass pieces. Broken glass pieces. It's like broken glass mirror. The entire poem appears like a puzzle. Appears like a puzzle. It is left to the reader to come to the objective correlative means you have to correlate things. You have to understand the poem by relating the images, the scattered images, scattered symbols, scattered allusions. Okay, he picks the characters from mythology, religion, and history. So very, very interesting poem. At the same time, this poem is considered as the morning song, the morning song of the death of what? Morning song of the death of European civilization. European civilization. It speaks about the death of European civilization. It is Shoka Gite. It's a morning song of the death of what? The death of the European civilization. Okay, so very, 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 very important. So he thought that the contemporary history is filled with futility and anarchy. So again, you can see, you can relate things. Matthew Arnold's culture and anarchy. Again, he speaks about the barrenness, the complete anarchy, loss of values. Okay. As I told you, in this poem, Eliot tries to restore what? Restore meaning to our culture. It tries to restore meaning to our culture. At the same time, the culture that had lost its meaning due to what? Due to rational approach of people. So you cannot give scientific touch, logical touch, or rational touch to everything, isn't it? So even people like scientists like Einstein, Albert Einstein, the biography, autobiography of Mahatma Gandhi. Even people like Albert Einstein was influenced by Mahatma, and also again Martin Luther King Jr. So why was he impressed by Martin Luther King Jr. and Mahatma Gandhi? Because both of them spoke about what humanity, and they addressed the issues related to humanity and human values, which science can't solve. There are issues which science can't solve. It is humanity which teaches human values. It is through literature you learn values, isn't it? So that is the reason why Eliot felt that time has ripened enough to consider literature seriously and to focus on the issues, the negative aspects, the other side of human life, the other side of human life. So you have beautiful side of human life, but at the same time there is other side of the world. There is boredom, there is barrenness, there is sterility. Banjetana ಇದೆ. Okay, banjetana ಇದೆ, sterility. So, which is opposite antonym to fertility. Sterility, there is sterility, boredom, barrenness, okay, complete barrenness. So that is what he focuses on. Very, very important issues. So, as Ellen Gardner, one of the important critic of the Wasteland, says it is a series of visions. The Wasteland is a series of visions. It has neither plot nor hero. It has neither plot, plot kuda illa, ee ಒಂದು poemಗೆ hero kuda illa. Ellen Gardner. She says it is a series of visions. It has neither plot nor the hero. In this poem, Eliot tries to present the sordid present, the dull present life. The sordid present is always related with the meaningful past. The round, dull life that we are experiencing today, the human horror, the human, again, boredom, okay, the terror, horrific life, the agony, pain, suffering that human beings experience in life was also experienced by our ancestors in the past. Sordid present is always connected with the meaningful past. So again, you should not forget that Eliot lays importance to tradition and humanity. Tradition and history. Tradition and history. Okay. Uh, let us move on to the poem. I think it's already 11:57. Let us move on to the poem. I spoke about, I gave you a small detail, explanation, background detail, explanation to the poem. It's one of the longest poem in the history of world literature. Okay, the poem has been not only in the history of English literature, entire poem is called as one of the longest poem in the history of world literature. You have the shortest poem also. So the shortest poem is in a station metro, in the station metro by Ezra Pound. The poem is of two lines. The poem is of two lines. The station metro by Ezra Pound. Ezrapound. Ezra Pound was a guiding light for T.S. Eliot. Eliot calls him as the guiding star for him. He calls him as Guru, my Guru, Ezra Pound. So Ezra Pound has written a poem of two lines on which people have done research of 1,000 pages. Research of 1,000 pages. A poem of two lines by Ezra Pound. Okay, you can read that. So every word counts, and every punctuation counts. Everything has some meaning. The poem there, the Ezra Pound's, station metro. The station metro is another important aspect. So in this poem, as I told you, Eliot tries to correlate things, objective correlative, a subject, a set of objects, situations, a chain of events, which shall be the formula of that situation. So what you have to do is, if you read the poem, you don't understand anything. As I told you, the poem is like the scattered images. The scattered images. It appears like a puzzle which has to be resolved. So Eliot believes it's the role of the reader to understand, to work hard, to stress hard, to work hard, to understand the meaning, to give a meaning for this poem. Okay, and uh, T.S. Eliot, the very beginning of the poem, The Wasteland, uses the lines from the Greek lines uh, from Petronius' book called Satiricon, written by Petronius, my Greek book called Satiricon by Petronius, which was published in 1 AD. 1 AD. So Eliot knew Latin and Greek. Eliot knew Sanskrit. Okay, Eliot had read books in Sanskrit. Eliot had read books in Latin and Greek. That is the reason why he experienced nervous breakdown. He was a ferocious reader. Ferocious reader. Okay, and you see here he borrows again some lines at the initial part of the poem from the book called Satiricon, Setarican, written by Petronius, who belongs to uh, Greek literature of 1 AD. Okay. Later on, he also says the poem is meant for Ezra Pound. He uses an Italian phrase to prize Ezra Pound. What does he says? For Ezra Pound, il miglior fabbro. Il miglior fabbro means, in Italian language, it means for a better artisan. For a better artisan. Il miglior fabbro is the phrase which 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 Eliot borrows from Dante's Divine Comedy, from Dante's Divine Comedy. Il miglior fabbro, il miglior, Migli, or miglior fabbro, Fabbro. Il miglior fabbro means better artisan, better artisan. So he dedicates his poem to Ezra Pound. Oh, Eliot. Let us see what is there in the poem. The poem is divided into 5 parts. 5 parts. The first part is the burial of the dead. The burial of the dead. And the second part is a game of chess. First part, a burial. Burial ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸತ್ತಂತವ್ರನ್ನ ಸತ್ತಿರೋರನ್ನ ಉಳೋದು ಅಂತ. The burial of the dead. Second part, a game of chess. A game of chess. Third part, the fire sermon. The fire sermon. And the fourth part, death by water. The fourth part, death by water. And the fifth part, what the thunder said. What the thunder said. 5 parts. The poem can be divided into 5 parts. First one is the burial of the dead. Second one, a game of chess. Third one, the fire sermon. Fourth one, death by water. And the fifth one, what the thunder said. What the thunder said. So, let us see what is there in the first part. I'll just try to give you the summary. Okay, the burial of the dead. The burial of the dead, look at the way he begins the poem. April is the cruelest month. So we are in April. It is the cruelest month. For whom? Which is the cruelest month for Indians? Huh? Is it April? So most of us may like summer season. But in Europe, people like summer season. In Europe, people like summer. They don't like winter because in winter it is too cold in European countries. They can't tolerate winter. Sometimes it will be minus 20 degree. But in India, people do not like summer. It is too hot here. See, look at the way he begins the poem. April is the cruelest month. So, but in Europe, April is known for autumn season, where nature gets rejuvenated, where nature gets rejuvenated, new life. In India, it is spring season. We call it as spring season. Whatever the season that we are experiencing. ಯುಗಾದಿ ಯುಗಾದಿ ಹಬ್ಬದ ಸಮಯ ಎಲ್ಲ ಹೊಸ ಹೊಸ ಹೂಗಳು ಎಲ್ಲ ಮರಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಹೂಗಳು ಗಿಡಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಹೂಗಳು ಮಾವಿನಕಾಯಿ ಬೇವಿನ ಚಿಗುರು ತಿಂದಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಮಾವಿನ ಚಿಗುರು ತಿಂದಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಕೋಗಿಲೆಯ ಇಂಪಾದ ಧ್ವನಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆ ಘಮಘಮಿಸುವ ಹೂವಿನ ವಾಸನೆ ಸೊ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಏನಂತ ತೋರಿಸುತ್ತೆ ವಸಂತ ಋತು ವಸಂತ ಕಾಲ ಮೊದಲನೇ ಕೋಗಿಲೆಯ ಕೂಗು ವಸಂತ ಕಾಲದ ಆರಂಭ okay so people in India some poets do like spring season so most of us don't like summer but within that summer we have between winter and summer we experience spring season in Europe they experience what summer later on, it is autumn season that they experience in the month of April. So April is the cruelest month for those who do not want to get activated, who want to sleep forever. So what is he trying to convey? He feels that people, the modern people, the native inhabitants, the native inhabitants of this modern world, means including you and me, the people of this modern world Hello, am I audible and visible now? Hello, I want your response in the comment box. If I am audible and visible, please comment so that I can continue with the class. Hello, it's okay. Yes, the burial of the dead, the first part, refers to the death of the fertility god. He speaks about the death of the fertility god. As we all have gods for each and every aspect of life, we have God for richness called Lakshmi, we have God for knowledge called Saraswati, we have God for strength, we have God for power, we have God for death, we have God for rain, huh? We have gods for everything, even in our Hindu mythology. The same way in Greek mythologies, they have God for everything. So here in this part, the poet is trying to speak about the burial of the dead refers to the death of death of the fertility god, death of the fertility god. The inhabitants of this modern contemporary word, which is nothing than a wasteland. The inhabitants means the inhabitants of this modern world, you and me. The inhabitants of this contemporary wasteland are spiritually dead. Are spiritually dead. Okay, they dislike to be rose. They dislike to be rose from their death in life situation, from their death in life condition. So they don't want to be awakened. They don't want to be awakened. ಅವರೆಲ್ಲ ಸತ್ತು ಮಲಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇನ್ಕ್ಲೂಡಿಂಗ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಆಧುನಿಕ ಅಗೇನ್ ಜಗತ್ತಿನ ಮನುಷ್ಯರು, ಆಧುನಿಕ ಜಗತ್ತಿನ ಜನ, ಪೀಪಲ್, ವಿ ಆರ್ ಆಲ್ ಡೆಡ್. ವಿ ಆರ್ ಲಿವಿಂಗ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಡೆಡ್ ಪೀಪಲ್. ವಿ ಆರ್ ನಾಟ್ ಎಟ್ ಆಲ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿವ್. ವಿ ಆರ್ ನಾಟ್ ಎಟ್ ಆಲ್ ಆಕ್ಟಿವ್. Because we do not want our what past to be revisited, revisited. We don't want to rethink or revisit our past or remember our past. It is called, why Eliot calls the April known for the autumn season, important season, known for bright sunny days, known for happier days in European countries. He calls that day, calls that month as the cruelest month. It is called as cruelest month because it is compared to the human life. It is compared to the human life as spring season revokes life into the dead natural objects, as the spring season revokes life into the natural dead objects, it also enables us, has means we human beings, to remember the old sweet memories, sweet memories and desires. Like this, Eliot is trying to chade what? The life thirst. It becomes shade the life by shading the life thirst. Again, it becomes cruel. It becomes cruel. So, hello. Really? So, sorry, I got a call, important call. That's okay. It is called as cruelest man because we human beings do not want to be rejuvenated like the nature, because we don't want our sweet old memories to be revisited. Very, very important. Because, as I told you, modern man do not want to chase any change. He is ready to lead a life like as it is. So he has not learned anything from the history. He do not want to make any change. Memory and desire steering dull roots with spring rain, winter kept us warm. He speaks about winter. It speaks about April, which is autumn season, spring season in India, and also speaks about winter. But he has praise for winter season. Actually, it is the winter which is cruelest in European countries for people. They cannot survive winter season in European countries. But in contrast, it's very, very paradoxical here. He dislikes, he feels that human beings, instead of enjoying the autumn season of April, which rejuvenates, revisits the sweet memories, which like it rejuvenates the nature, human beings do not want to get rejuvenated. They are happy with the winter season. They are happy to live in a cozy warm condition of winter season. Okay, so winter kept us warm, covering hearth in forgetful snow, feeding a little life with the dried tubers. Summer surprised us. Summer surprised us coming over the Sternberger Sea. Sternberger Sea is a lake near Munich. Lake near Munich. Munich is in, I think it's in Switzerland, isn't it? Munich. It speaks about the place called Sternberger Sea. It's a lake located in Munich. Okay, and this fellow speaks about a place, a lake called Sternberger Sea. Okay, at the same time, with a shower of rain, we stopped in the colonnade and went on in sunlight into the Hofgarten. Hofgarten is a cafe in Germany. It's a cafe in Germany. So we enjoyed the winter by visiting the lake, the cafes. Okay. Bingargain, Rasin, Stamus, Lithuanian, ex dish. And when we were children, staying at the Archduke's, my cousins, it took me out on sled and I was frightened. He said, Mary, hold on tight. And down we went in the mountains. There you feel free. So some lines he borrows from Ovid's works, and also from Ezekiel's poem. Ezekiel is also called, Ezekiel, he also uses some, some biblical characters, some mythological characters here. It's taken from so many other, again, he also uses Joseph Conrad's, lines from Joseph Conrad's book, use, again, according to Bible, does the symbol of emptiness of human body. There's so many images of, again, symbols, allusions he uses. He also speaks about the three different travel experiences that has been quoted in the Bible from lines 38 to 58. Okay. Speaks about Hyacinth Garden, that is there referred in the Bible. Okay, the deep and tragic love of Tristan with Isolde. Okay, is also a failed romance of again that happened in Hyacinth Garden. The deep and tragic love of Tristan with Isolde. Hyacinth, a son of King Sparta. Okay, son of King Sparta, affectionate to Apollo god, lovable to Sapphires god of west wind. He died by the iron bangle thrown by Sapphires, and the blood that dropped, again drowning head was converted into, again, flowers by Apollo god. So many mythological Greek mythological characters he uses to convey the meaning. So he borrows material or source from Dante's Divine Comedy Inferno, okay, and also from John Webster's book called The White Devil, okay, White Devil, okay, and also from Baudelaire's Flowers of Sin, okay, Flowers, a book called Flowers of Sin by Baudelaire, French writer, okay. He borrows material from different literatures of different European countries, okay. Let us see what is there in, as I told you, in the first part, he speaks about human failure to appreciate the rejuvenated life. Human beings do not want to be rosed up. They want to spend a listless, bored, horrifying life. They do not want to be rejuvenated like the nature in the during the spring season. So in game of chess, you can see it takes the title for this particular again episode or the part from Thomas Middleton's work. It's a play called titled A Game of Chess. He borrows it from Thomas Middleton's play titled A Game of Chess, where he speaks about Cleopatra. We all know Cleopatra, great Egyptian princess who was known for her love affair with Antonio. Antonio, a common man, a soldier, in fact, she falls in love with Antonio, Cleopatra. Here again, Eliot uses the historical character called Cleopatra, a literary figure called Cleopatra. Again, Antonio and Cleopatra is a play written by Shakespeare. So he uses material from Shakespearean play and also from historical document. So the chair she sat in this passage, or in this part, he speaks about Cleopatra. The chair she sat in like a burnished throne, glowed on the marble, glowed on the marble, where the glass held up by the standards wrought with fruited wines, from which a golden Cupidon peeped out. Another hid his eyes behind his wing. Double the flames, seven branched candelabra. So, he takes it from Antonio Cleopatra, Shakespeare's Antonio Cleopatra, Act 2, Scene 1. Act 2, Scene 1. Okay. Page, again, lines number 190. Okay, lines number 190. Again, 190. So Cleopatra is heading on ship to meet Antony. Okay, Antonio. So these lines speaks about Cleopatra's love towards Antonio. Though she is married, she had relationship with Antonio. You all know that. So what happens here? He uses that historical literary character called Cleopatra and borrows what the lines from Shakespearean play called Antonio and Cleopatra. Act 2, Scene 1. Line number 190. The chair she sat like a burnished throne, glowed on the marble where the glass held up. So he also borrows material from Paradise Lost, okay, of Milton. Again, Paradise Lost, Volume 4. He borrows material lines, few literary lines. He borrows from Milton's Paradise Lost, Part 4. Okay. So what do you see in this part, a game of chess? Second part, Here you see in this part, again, this part explores the failure of sexual relationship in the modern Westland, in the modern wasteland. Sex has become a matter of intrigue, a matter of moves and counter moves. Sexual relationship is like it's like playing a game of chess where the boy moves a pawn and there is a counter move from the other side. Let it be a girl or a woman like Cleopatra. There will be a counter moves. You see a woman with your eyes, you get attracted, she gets attracted, and you fall in love. So here he speaks about sexual degeneration of modern man. He also speaks about commercialization of sex, degeneration of sex. Okay, he speaks about illegal sexual relationships, which is happening across the world, which is causing danger to humanity, which is causing probably again, like he was not like again for that to come to the what does I'll show you fear in the handful of dust mean. So again, very very famous line. I'll show you a fear in the handful of dust means to show the barrenness, the vast, horrifying picture of the world in a glimpse. So very very important phrase. I'll show you fear in the handful of dust. So it means he speaks about the sterile lifestyle of modern man. Okay, lifestyle of modern man. Jayashri, yes, it's a good question. Again, it's somewhere here. He speaks about that. Uses that. It's line number. I think I cannot go ahead with the. I cannot go ahead with each line because it's a long poem. It takes at least 3 hours to discuss each and every line. Forgive me. So I'm just giving you the overall hint, summarizing the overall hint. Okay, giving you overall hint or summarizing summarizing each part of it. Okay, so I have a ready notes for that. I have made parallel notes. I don't know again which line you are speaking of. Again, it might be somewhere here. Okay, so as I told you, this part again explores the failure of sexual relationship in the modern Westland. Sex has become a matter of intrigue, a matter of moves and counter moves between men and women. It has become what? It has become a mere source of pleasure and has lost its spiritual significance. Sex is no more a spiritual act. Sex is an act of production where you produce create new thing. You give life to a new thing, isn't it? The same sex has become what? A mere act of what? Mere act of pleasure, mere source of pleasure. So again, you can see for that he uses King Teros life, and you have Philomela, character called Philomela from Greek mythology. Philomela, she is a character who destroys the life of King Tero. The King Tero ravishes his wife's sister called Philomela. Sexually ravishes his wife's sister called Philomela. So to take revenge, what King Tero's wife does? King Tero's wife kills King's son, and serves his heart for dinner, so that the goddess in order to protect in order to protect these sisters, makes them or transforms them into two birds, into birds. Okay, so very very important. So in this part, Eliot is speaking about family life. Family life, both in high and rich society, both high and rich, and also in low society, as what has reached a stalemate, and life has become and life has become a round dull routine, a round dull routine. And Eliot foresees, he also traces, he also feels, he can see, he traces the futility of boredom, neurosis of modern life, to the perversion of sexual relationship. For that, he uses the example of a typewriter, a typist who falls in love and maintains a maintains a sexual relationship with her boss. So there is another example which he uses from modern day life, modern day life, where he speaks about sexual perversion, again, he speaks about infidelity, and illegal illicit relationships. For that to come to the conclusion, he uses so many such examples from Middleton Murray's Middleton Murray's work. Okay, women, be aware, women. Again, and also Tempest uses the example lines from Tempest, and also taken from the short story. He also uses the lines from the short story written by D.H. Lawrence, which was published in the magazine called The Dial, and also uses the again lines like "oh oh oh," that Shakespearean rag. Shakespeare was used to too low level. This song was famous around in 1912. He uses that, and also good night ladies, good night sweet ladies, good night, good night. So that particular line he borrows from Shakespeare's play Hamlet, taken from William Shakespeare's Hamlet, Act 4, scene number 5. Okay, and this particular line is said by Ophelia to court's ladies while giving send off. So he has been in the army 4 years. That particular line again, he speaks about, again the line speaks about the period 1914 to 1980, 4 years, the First World War, the period in which the First World War took place. So in the third section, the fire sermon, he speaks about about what the again in this section he speaks about about different kind of what human feelings, kind of kind of seven kind of again sins that human beings go in search of, commit. Seven kind of sins, we all know that the seven deadly sins, and out of the seven deadly sins, lust is also one of the chief sin. You know, the fire sermon, for that he borrows, in this particular section, he borrows the title from Buddhism. The title is taken from the Buddha's sermon, the fire sermon. Okay, the word is very, very important. In this section, he projects the world. He projects the world as he shows the world as what? Burning with lust, comma again passion, hatredness, and also thousand other evils. Both East and West condemns lust as source of all evils. So lust is considered as the source of all evils. The religions that you see across the world, both in West and East, let it be Hinduism, let it be Islam, let it be Christianity, let it be Buddhism. Almost all the religions speak about what? Speak about lust. Lust is considered as the source of all the other evils, all the other evils. So spirituality is dead, and modern humanity knows only lust, and there is no true love. There is no true love, and human beings are so much involved, busy in their life. A husband doesn't have time for his wife and children, whereas in the same token, even the wives and children do not have time for their father or the husband. Each and every one of us are busy in our own life, and at the same time, there is no spirituality, there is no human affection, connection, there is no human bondage. So everything is seen in the spectacle of lust. Okay, lust means in the eye, it means through means again, lust has become the source of all evils. Lust is the major source of all evils. So because of lust, because of sexual pleasure, he speaks about different ways of attaining sexual pleasures, and which again, according to him, sex is not just sex has become a mere act of what mere physical act. There is no human connection, human affection, human bondage, or love between the two lovers when the sexual act is in progress. So he feels that there is complete sterility, spiritual decay, sexual degeneration. He speaks about sexual degeneration, and the sterile burning of sex or lust is brought out by different sexual experiences in the contemporary wasteland. So he uses so many images, allusions, so or examples from history and literature to come to that conclusion. Okay, he speaks about again the spiritual regeneration of the 20th century. So, oh, sorry, it's 12:40. I'll continue in the next class. If you permit me, it's already 12:40. So shall I move? Shall I leave the class so that I can continue in the next class? Because I am still in the third section, I don't think I can complete to that poem. So I'll meet you again if it is possible in the noon or tomorrow. So I'll try to complete the text by tomorrow or today evening. If such is the case, okay, we'll move. You can move on to the next class. Madam is waiting. Okay, is that fine? The speaker is Tiresias. Again, Tiresias is the Greek mythological character. Tiresias is the speaker. Again, he uses, again, because we'll come to that later. I'll speak about him later.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope I am audible enough. Yeah. Topic for today's discussion is Heaney's Tolland Man. Uh, this is from Hardcore 2.3, 20th century English poetry. So, in this poem, I'm going to talk about Heaney's writing skill and how and what inspired him to write the poem. Yeah. Hope I am audible today. No hurdles like what we had faced yesterday. Yeah. After this poem, I'm also going to talk about Kamala Das two poems, which is prescribed for you under Hardcore 2.4 under the title Modern Indian Poetry in English. Two of her poems, My Grandmother's House and Punishment in Garden. These are the two poems I'm going to talk about soon after the poem discussion of Seamus Heaney's Tolland Man. And as we all know that Heaney is what a well-known poet. Okay, he also comes under modern poetry, and what he wanted to write, and especially what he wanted to portray through this poem, this is very important. And regarding the background of Seamus Heaney, he is a very interesting personality in the history of 20th century English poetry. And regarding the biographical details, he is considered as one of the most renowned postmodernist poets. And he has written many good literary works and which are famous and rich in the poetic merits. And Heaney's cultural identity as a writer is a very complex one. So maybe after reading his biographical details, we come to know what kind of a complex identity he had. And he was born and brought up in Northern Ireland. Okay, basically with born Irish, which officially makes him British citizen. He has to face identity crisis in himself in his own life. So this Tolland Man is also talk about, I think, about that kind of identity crisis and so on. And he was, as I told you, that he was born and brought up in as an Irish, but he got a British citizenship. So as far as traditional matters are concerned, the poet seems to be mystified about his own identity. And he was first recognized and established as a poet in England and not in Dublin, okay, basically. And at the same time, he is also a Northern Irish Catholic, and therefore he is a part of a minority that belongs officially to United Kingdom, officially to England, okay. So such ambiguities and divisions in Heaney's personalities, like identity crisis, as I said, and the awareness of minority normally reflected in his works. The best example is the poem what I am going to discuss in this session, The Tolland Man. Just a Tolland Man by Seamus Heaney. So in the mid of 1960s, Heaney's poems first came into public attention or public notice while he was actively working in one of a group of poets who was subsequently recognized as constituting something of a northern school within Irish writing. As I told you, basically he's an Irishman, right? So by polarization or quarter century of violence and inner distrust had the effect not only of darkening the mood of Heaney's work in the 1970s, but also giving him a deep preoccupation with the question of poetic responsibilities and prerogatives in the world. So the poet felt that poetry is balanced between a need for artistic freedom within itself and a pressure to express the sense of social responsibility. So in his essay, well-known essay, The Government of the Tongue, which was published in 1988, and the redress of poetry published in 1995, bear witness to the seriousness which this question assumed for him as he was establishing himself as a writer. So in 1996, he was made a Commander de l'Art by the French Ministry of Affairs, of French Ministry of Culture, and subsequent to winning the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1995. He was a Nobel laureate, okay, and he was also known as a very well-established Irish poet who talks about culture, identity, and hybridity, and so on. So, what is the background of this poem, Tolland Man? This poem is the second poem in the collection of Heaney's work, inspired by the work of Globe, which appeared in Heaney's third collection of poems, that is Wintering Out. Okay, so the Tolland Man is considered as one of the Europe's best known bog bodies. Okay, Europe's bog bodies, like how in Egypt we have mummies, like in Europe we have bog bodies. So it was found in the early 1950s alongside the Gravel Man. Okay, so in Northern Europe, specifically in Denmark, Ireland, and Germany, bog bodies were extensively spread and discovered because it was the time of Holocaust, and even after the First and Second World War, we used to find this kind of bog bodies, especially where Denmark, Ireland, and Germany. Okay, so due to anaerobic conditions, the peat perfectly preserves the bodies. And although the bodies are found blackened, their fingertips and hair and clothing are still unharmed. Okay, their hair, fingertips, and even their clothing are still unharmed because some techniques they used to bury those bodies and preserve those bodies. And during prehistoric period, people used to believe that if the man was put to death as part of a sacrificial fire or sacrificial rite, sorry, by performing those sacrificial rites, the fertility of the crops could be improved. Okay, so the poem thus, thus discusses the culture and customs of the Iron Age. Okay, but the central argument of this poem is that which transpires that it symbolizes the history of Ireland. And since these bog bodies were mainly found in Denmark, Ireland, and so on, that's why through this poem, Seamus Heaney tries to illustrate the history, culture, customs of Ireland. Hope I am audible enough. Are you following me? Yeah, no? Yeah, no hurdles. Yeah, first let me complete this poem because I have to finish this poem along with, oh, again breaking voice. Yeah, along with the other two poems, Kamala's, and later I'll try to answer your questions. Yeah, Tolland Man, as I was talking about. So that's why through this poem, he tries to uh, what, uh, portray the culture, customs, and tradition of Ireland. And Seamus Heaney illustrates that it has come habitual for Irishmen to undergo oppression in Northern Ireland, and it is ritual for them to sacrifice their lives so as to save the lives of the other fellow men. And that's what I like WBA yesterday we were discussing, right? So like him, he also portrays some patriotic or some patriotism of his own people towards their nation, towards their land. So, however, his imaginative background moment is necessary to link this contemporary sectarian violence of the 1960s with the sectarian brutal action of the Iron Age. So, accordingly, the Bog Bodies Smith work as a means to understand the violence in the Northern Ireland within larger perspectives. So, the main purpose of using the myth and symbols is to provide him with an objective space through which he can explore the unconscious and mixed tribal violence of contemporary Ireland. According to Brett Davin, he was a well-known historian and a critic of Seamus Heaney. He says like that. So, due to his personal experience in Berkeley, Seamus Heaney was able to focus on the mythological images to present the contemporary political situations. In 1971, he worked as a lecturer at the University of California, and according to Michael Parker, there he found that in a highly technological society, the whole movement was back, and there was a terrific nostalgia to reverence the primitive kind of life. I mean, he says that very undergraduate in Berkeley, in some ways, wanted to be a red Indian. And Seamus Heaney here refers to Berkeley undergraduate students' primitive rejection of the American contemporary crimes. Okay, so these are the history, emotions, and feelings of this Tolland man has a kind of motivation to Heaney to write the poem under the title Tolland Man. So he discovers that the facial features of the Tolland man is similar to his ancestors. Got it? So in an interview with Danger and all, he himself identifies with his uncle with that of the Tolland man, and with a mustache, and everyone in the countryside of Ireland looks like a prehistoric faces of Tolland man. So in his interview with James Randall, he identifies and he acknowledges that as his uncle also what have a has a similarities of Tolland Man. So this analogy has an imaginative source which was suggested by P.D. Glob, and he discusses about the destinies of men in the past as well as the same paths of illness in the contemporary Northern Ireland. So that's all about the poem, the background of the poem, and what do the first section of the poem talks about. So, in the first lines of the poem, we have the speaker who gives a few basic details about the mummified man, such as what he was wearing and where he was found. And he also expresses his desire to visit the man, comparing the journey to a pilgrimage. He says that he wants to take a pilgrimage to the place Aras. Okay, in order to understand each and every word, you should read out the poem, and you have to refer the notes what we have given you. Okay, so in the next section, the poet starts to compare the preserved man, the bog bodies, to those who have fought and died in Northern Ireland for their what for their land's sake. So the poem concludes with the speaker predicting what it would be like to visit the area, because he wanted to visit that area, and he decides that he also would feel sad but also very much at home when he visits that. So in which context Seamus Heaney is saying all these things? The poem was inspired by a sealed, as I told you, by inspired by a sealed and mummified bodies or preserved prehistoric bodies of people, which discovered in a bog in a Jutland peninsula in Denmark in 1950. So, from what scientists could learn from the body, it was determined that the man had lived during the 4th century BC. Imagine, the 4th century BC man's bodies were found in 1950, which means in the mid of 20th century. Got it? So scientists believe that the man was part of a ritual of human sacrifice and died by strangulation. Okay, this is what the archaeologist or the scientist found out after examining the mummified or the bog bodies. So the body caught the public's attention, and because of the quality of its preservation, imagine 4th century BC bodies are found in the mid of 20th century, and still their hair, the cloth, and even their fingertips were not harmed. Imagine the quality of preservation, right? All the facial features are distinguishable as it was the man's dying expression, and in fact, the body was mistaken for a recent murder victim when it was first discovered. In that way, they started exploring and examining the body in order to know the facts, okay, and their background. And what is the regarding the symbolism of this poem, as the poem progresses from a fairly straightforward description of the Tolland man, it also becomes clear that the body symbolizes a number of important things to Heaney, and he becomes nostalgic all of a sudden, and he also started comparing the bog bodies to that of his uncle, how he resembles, and he also started relating the body to that of his ancestors and so on. So due to the nature of the man's death, these include sacrifice and devoutness. So before his death, the Tolland man believed that his sacrifice would benefit his people in some or other way. Especially critically, he starts analyzing this. So he gave up his life in order to those he cared about or might have better lives. So it is through this lens that Seamus Heaney considers the man and the land in which he was found. So he compares the sacrifice that Tolland man made for his people to that the Irish are engaging in. And they too hope that their lives might have been something else and something different, and in the end, they benefit those they love, their larger community, and their larger country. Only those they can sacrifice their lives for the sake of their country, and they become martyrs or martyrs. And In the very first stanza itself, the speaker begins by declaring that one day he is going to visit a place called Aras, Aarhus. With some contextual details, it quickly becomes clear that this is the name of a place, Aras, and referencing the second largest city in Denmark. And he tries to locate this very near to the museum where which the body of the Tolland man was in display or is in display even now. So Heaney speaker addresses Aras as if it is a site of pilgrimage. Because in the very first stanza, the speaker tries to take a pilgrimage, he says, to the place of Aras. So he intends to go there and engage in the appreciation of the Tolan man and of his symbolic and historical experience and importance, because he outlines in the next stanza or in the next line of the stanza that some of the man's feature he is going to see, which include his brown colored head and the mild parts of the eyelids and his pointed skin cap and so other things and so on, so many other things. So we readers of a literature or as a student of literature, it is our responsibility to take note of the use of alliteration in this poem, because in the fourth semester I think you are going to study the practical criticism, where you have to analyze a poem on the base of theory on critically. Got it? So this we have to take a note of alliteration used in these lines, especially three lines in the stanza, very first stanza, as Heaney uses and reuses the words beginning with the letter P. So in the second stanza, we have a speaker who goes on to recall so many things, and he goes into so many detail about where the man was found and what his original environment was like and how it had impacted his body, and how it had impacted on his body and how he physically appeared and how he might have discovered and he was discovered. So Heaney first discusses the location where the body was discovered, right? Then the landscape was flat and he started giving the pictorial or panoramic view of countryside, and very simple manner Heaney's speaker adds that scientists are able to discover and determine the man's last meal was still in his stomach. Imagine. So it was a gruel of winter seeds. So the meal was very basic, and it is used in this poem to humanize the man who is so distant from modern readers. And it is also very interesting to know all these lines and all these details in the very second stanza. Okay, then he also gives so many other details in the third stanza, where he describes how this tall man was wearing nothing except for the cap. Okay, and this is a reference to this sheepskin cap and that the man was wearing when he was discovered by the scientist or the archaeologist, and there were no other thing, okay, other than these clothing items on the body. But those who removed the body from the bog discovered that there was a nose around the man's neck. Okay, not nose, noose. Okay, there was a noose around the man's neck. At one point, scientists thought that the man might have died by hanging, or but the cause of death was later reassessed and determined that it might be the strangulation. And this is how the speaker returns to describing how he intends to address the man by saying that he is going to stand a long time staring at this preserved fragment of history. Here, Tolland Man is compared to the fragment of history and the two how this has been preserved so far and so long, for the longer centuries and more than 10 centuries, right? Fourth century, and which was discovered in 20th century, then more than 16 centuries difference. So there is a bit of ambiguity in the fourth line of the third stanza, where we could find that how the speaker states that someone, either himself or the Tolan man, or both are the bridegroom of to the goddess. Why he says like that? both himself and the Tolland man are the bridegroom to the goddess, because the Tolland man was granted something like eternal life, right, by the unknown goddess. But at the same time, considering the very few lines of this stanza, which compare the speaker's intended trip to a pilgrimage, one might want to consider the speaker's own relationship to a higher power, that because he is very blessed, he can have a trip to Aras to visit that. And this is how Heaney presents throughout the fourth stanza, and even fifth stanza also. Again, the same, like how small. See, these are all small stanzas, but written in detail about how the poet or the speaker felt after seeing the body, and after visiting the news, having heard the news of how scientists have discovered the body, and what he tries to conclude the first section of the poem by stating that this stolen man, who is for any number of reasons important to the speaker, is now resting at Aras. So he tries to visit that place. And finally, as I told you, that this poem has three sections, okay, and three sections but of simple stanzas. And how Tolan Man symbolizes spirituality in this poem is also very important. And because the helplessness of the man in front of the gods can be identified through the tone of the poem. And because, according to Heaney, he says that, according to the scientist, he says they might have sacrificed, or the stolen man in that century, or they might have and but later they come to know that maybe due to the sacrificial rites, their bodies have been preserved in that manner. And that's why how beautifully Heaney compares this act as, this is the helplessness of the human being, of an ordinary human man, of an ordinary man in front of the gods. And this can be identified through this, through the what the tone of the poem, the sad note of the poem. People were compelled to perform such sacrifices, though willingly or unwillingly, because these sacrifices and rituals, in order to gain blessings of gods, was very important in those centuries. Even now, we can able to find out, right? Yeah. So that's why people may consider the Tolan man as a martyr, but Heaney's own opinion is completely different from the monk, because according to Heaney, Tolan man is just a victim. Imagine, he's neither a hero nor a martyr, but just a victim in the hands of the public. And under their blind vision of sacrifices and rituals, they are simply murdering the innocent souls in the name of the gods. Okay, hope you are following me, and I am audible enough. No such doubts. Yeah, Harasin. Hope hope you are following me. What I am saying. Yeah, let me come back to the Heaney's description and Heaney's views, or his opinion on this Dolan man. How, because he is a practical man, he says that Dolan man is neither a hero nor a martyr, but just a victim of his own custom, victim of his own tradition. Got it? So, according to him, it was believed that in each winter, the new bridegrooms to be sacrificed for the goddess to certify and to enhance the fertility of the crops for the upcoming spring season. Imagine. So, because of this, the poet is against such rituals, and that's why he says that Tolan man was just a victim. And because of, in order to make their land or mud or soil fertile, they used to sacrifice the newly married bridegrooms. Got it? So he doesn't support this kind of idea. Neither he like this kind of rituals. He is just against this kind of customs and rituals. He doesn't like peace and harmony that comes by sacrificing the innocent souls in front of gods and in the name of God, and in the name of custom and tradition. In other words, he is against such violence. And he says that this is not at all about sacrifice, but this is a what very harsh violence, okay, towards our humanity. The Tolland Man's death incident belongs to the Iron Age, as I told you. Yes, of course, it symbolizes the struggle of Irish people who sacrificed their lives for the bright future and welfare of their next generation. And the sacrifices of Irishmen are completely occupied in the mind of Seamus Heaney, as he was a true Irish, though he was a British. And there seems to be a strong bond exists between the poet and the Tolland Man. Got it? So he compares the life of the Tolland Man to the whole community of Irishmen, how they sacrifice their lives for the sake of their country. And he, through this poem, tries to portray griefs and sorrows of Irish children and widows as he tries to describe it through this poem by using astute symbols. And this is what he tries to portray here. And he needs to conclude shows his intimate association with those who were killed in the war by recalling the names of Kamala, Devil God, and Tolland. And he also laments for his fellow citizens. And in the final section of the poem, he portrays the seclusion of the poet, as there is no optimism in the tone of the poet, and even lost strong will to move further. The poetry of Heaney has been acknowledged for its cultural and social themes with the touch of modernity in them, and the language which the poet uses is also of the highest quality. So Helen Wenders, to conclude, he, in his opinion, which is accurate in this context, he says that Seamus Heaney's poetry is an overview of strong social engagement. He has made imaginative cast after another in an attempt to represent the unrepresented united suffering of the North Island. And however, it has tried equally consistently and to bring intellectual reflection to the emotional attitudes, where Helen Wendler, he talks about this in his article too. Okay, then what is the central theme of this poem? You have to tell me what is the central theme of the poem. The customs and tradition and the religious killing of innocent souls in the name of gods and goddesses, and so many other things, right? The poem shades common themes such as death, sacrifice, religion, culture, rituals, myths, caste, and powerlessness, and innocence, isolation, and despair. So the poem ends with pessimistic note, where the poet prays to the Tolland Man to revive all the dead Irish people from the troubles, and he also appeals to a kind of universal compassion should endure and prevail across generations in spite of merciless murders. This is what about what I can say. This is all about Tolland Man and the themes. Hope you have understood the themes, important themes of Tolland Man, and what is the background of this poem. And as I told you that I'm going to discuss Kamala's poetry. Okay, in the same session, two of her poems have been prescribed for you in this um, yeah, semester under Hardcore 2.4. The title of the course is Modern Indian Poetry in English. Okay, let me start with My Grandmother's House, written by Kamala Das. And we all know that Kamala Das is one of the best and significant Indian female poet in Indian writing in English. And today, the other two being is Nizam Scale and Ramanujan. Right? Even Sarojini Naidu also is considered as the best significant poet in the history of Indian writing in English. So, and how Kamala Das poetry is very important and unique and significant in the history of Indian writing in English. You might have read her poems like An Introduction, right? Very well known poem, by Kamala Das, and she is also known for her bold expressions and her boldness while writing about her own experiences through her poems. Right. So Kamala Das poetry is all about herself and about her childhood and her about her childhood experience and about her own experience when she got married and so many things. And it also talks about her intensely felt desire for love and for emotional involvement and her failure to achieve such a relationship between a man whom she loved. Got it. So in this poem, especially in my grandmother's house, we can find that how Kamala Das recalls her ancestral home. The title itself tells us, right, the meaning of or the theme of the poem. And here she recalls her ancestral home and her dead grandmother. So this poem takes the form of a confession poetry. Okay, and this is a we can also consider her as a confessional poet because she always in all her poems we can have a note of confessionism and her confession especially. So that's why the poem takes the form of a confession poetry, comparing her present broken state with that of being unconditionally loved by her grandmother. Then what is this poem all about? This poem is a nostalgic poem, and where we have her the poetess is in reminiscence mode, and this is she is feeling so nostalgic, and because though it's a short poem, here this poem is loaded with so much of meaning. That's why this is a short poem. Its meaning is vast and wide. And the undercurrent of the poem is Kamala Das' childhood life and her experience and her bonding towards a strong bond with her grandmother, and where she felt more loved and she felt very soothed in the company of her grandmother. So the opening lines of the poem tells us about her grandmother's house and how she lived and where she lived when she was very young. And this is a constituent poem of Kamala Das' maiden, okay, and her maiden publication, that is Summer in Calcutta. And though short poem, the poem wraps within itself an intriguing sense of nostalgia and uprootedness. And she feels she is uprooted because her now no grandmother and even no chance of visiting her grandmother's house. That's why this poem wraps within itself that nostalgia and uprootedness. So in her eternal sense, or in Kamala's eternal quest for love in such a loveless world, has been very well portrayed in this poem. The poet especially remembers how she remembers her grandmother, which surfaces some emotions long forgotten and buried sometimes within her, which is an ironical expression of her past, which is a tragic contrast to her present situation now. So it is a forcefully moving poem which fraught with nostalgia and anguish. Okay, and to read her poem, the poem goes like this. There is a house now far away where once I received love. That woman died, and the house the house withdrew into silence. Snakes moved. Okay, how she develops the poem, and she uses very simple language but highly loaded in meaning. Snakes moved among books. I was then too young to read, and my blood turned cold like the moon. How often I think of going there to peer through blind eyes of uh, peer through means peep through, okay, peer through blind eyes of window, or just listen to the frozen air, or in wild despair pick an armful of darkness to bring it here to lie behind my bedroom door like a brooding dog. See, just if you read or if you go through this poem, you analyze how beautifully, and how in a very simplified manner, Kamala Das wanted to write her poetry, and which is very touching. And she says, "Behind my bedroom door, like a brooding dog, you cannot believe, darling, can you, that I lived in such a house, and it was proud and loud. I, who have lost my way, and beg now at stranger's door to receive love, at least in small change." So this is about a poem. This is a small poem, as I told you, a very short poem. That's why this poem is a reminiscence of the poetess grandmother and her ancestral home. And this is all about poet's childhood memory, which depicts her love towards grandmother. And this poem also wraps within itself a sense of nostalgia, where the poet's eternal quest for love and in such loveless world can be seen by the readers, and we can identify that. So that's why the poet says that her grandmother's house was a place where she felt secure and loved by everyone. And now she says that though she is married, she is not at all happy, and nowhere she is loved. That's why last lines of the poem says, no, now I am standing before some stranger's door to seek a bit love. Okay, just a love change, he says. And that's why she feels that her grandmother's house there was a place where she was felt secure and she was loved by everyone. And after her grandmother's death, the house was filled with silence, and she is begging for love. Okay, so that's why the poet says that there is a house, and her grandmother's house, far and far away from which she currently lives or resides, and where she received love. And her grandmother's home was a place where she felt secured, and the poet, especially, she has intensified the emotions of nostalgia and anguish by presenting a contrast between her childhood and her adulthood. Got it? Hope you are following me. Am I audible now? Are you following what I'm saying? Main theme of the poem is nostalgia, childhood memories, okay, that reminiscence, and so on. Because she says that in her grandmother's house, she was loved and she felt very safe and she was secure. But now she is begging a true love from a stranger's one. Hope now I am audible enough. Again, are you facing the same problem? Yeah. This is what I'm discussing so far, that uh, how the poet has intensified the emotions of nostalgia and anguish by presenting a contrast between her childhood life and her adulthood life, and the fullness of the distant and absence, and the emptiness of the near and present, especially emptiness of that house, is also presented beautifully in this poem with a poignancy. So the images of snakes moving among the books, and the blood turning cold like the moon, and the blind eyes of windows, and frozen air, and these are all the images and the phrases which evoke a sense of death and despair. Hope you're following me what I'm saying. So that's why the grandmother's house itself becomes a symbol of a cradle of love and joy, and the escape, the poetic retreat, and which is in fact the poet's own manner of suggesting the hopelessness of her present situation. And this is common, naturally this is common in everybody's childhood life, right? And we were very healthy and we were very happy, somewhat jovial and merrymaking when we were child. But can we experience the same when we attain the maturity, or when we attain our adulthood? No. And can we get the same freedom? No. So in this way we can also, this is somewhat like, we also feel nostalgic after reading this poem, because where the poet yearns for the house where, which is a symbolic retreat to a world of innocence, purity, and simplicity. And regarding the themes, of this is essentially the, what we can say, the woman. Hence the woman persona of her poems plays the various roles of unhappy woman here. And as we have quite common that unhappiness and the nostalgic, the reminiscence, every nostalgia, everything we could able to find in her poems. And Kamala Das has also been called as a poet of the confession poetry. I told you that confessional world or more. So the confessional poets normally deals with emotional experiences which are generally taboo, and there is a ruthless self-analysis and a tone of utter sincerity in this poem we can find. And I told you the reminiscent of the poet's ancestral home is also very well portrayed in this poem, and how what we have the reminiscence and a yearning for the past and a choked with grief the present life. And these are the things we can find, that these are the important themes of this poem. And let me move on to another poem by Kamala Das, that is The Punishment in Kindergarten. Okay, here also, like the previous poem, what we have discussed so far, my grandmother's home, how she is in reminiscent mode or her yearning for the past. Also, we have some kind of similarity between these two poems. In Punishment in the Garden, here Kamala Das retains again a childhood experiences that is very difficult for her, and she is also in a confessional mode even in this poem, and she also reminiscence, and she also feels a nostalgic because she was scolded by her teacher for being separated from everyone else, and her classmates too also laughed at her, that made her weep. See, the punishment in kindergarten. The title itself suggests the hidden meaning of the poem, because this also talks about her one of her childhood experiences when she was scolded by her teacher, because for being separated from her friends she started weeping. Okay, so the poem has been divided into three parts, and in the first part, the poet examines how her teacher scolded her, and in the second part she retains her classmates laughing at her, and when they started laughing, how they made her to weep. And in the last part she says that being an adult, there is no requirement for her to memorize this experience. Okay, this is also very short and simple poem. The poem starts with a line that today the world is a little more my own. I think some kind of very confidence we can find here, a kind of maturity in this line. The poet starts with a line like, "Today the world is a little more my own," because which clarifies that she will discuss a previous event that was not wonderful for her. And then she starts by portraying that the lady in her childhood, especially when she was studying in kindergarten, when she went on excursion along with other students. This is an incident. Based on this incident, she had written this poem. And so she starts portraying the day in her childhood when she went on an excursion with her uh, class teacher along with her friends. So the poet utilizes the plentiful of images like a blue frocked women for her teacher, and throwing words at me like pots and pans. Okay, because these are the days the students normally just don't care for their lecturers or teachers, whatever they are doing in the class, they just immersed in their world, right? But here, those were the days how Kamala Das was explaining, portraying, they were so scared of their teacher. And she also says that the blue frocked women, okay, for her teacher, and how she throws words like pots and pans, and to make us feel the intensity of teacher's words, the honey colored for the day which was demolished by the cruel expression of her own teacher. So while other students were just fun making, they were making fun and they were playing together, Kamala Das was sitting alone in one corner, and she feels that she was not liked by everyone, nor neither loved by her teacher, and not entertained by her blue frocked teacher. She says, blue frock teacher means the teacher was wearing blue frock, blue color frock. And she was also scolded by her, calling her like a peculiar child. Why her teacher scolds her? Because she is not mingling with other classmates and she doesn't want to play with them, and she neither wants to make fun with them. Instead, she is sitting and she is just standing in one corner of a place and watching how everyone is playing around. That's why this teacher calls her like, you are standing there like a peculiar child. So she feels embarrassed, and Kamala does, though she was very small. So here in the first part of the poem, the poet portrays the day which was very charming and at last demolished by her teacher, and it was somewhat like disgusting for her, and she didn't like the comment passed by her teacher. So in the second part we have that the poet says when the teacher scolded her, other students who were enjoying and who were playing there and they were tasting sugarcane, they started laughing at her. Okay, after listening to the comment passed by the teacher, they were other students who were enjoying biting or tasting the sugar cane. They began laughing at her. This was a humiliation for Kamala Das. So the children, as per Kamala Das, are interesting creatures, and they laugh at others' agonies. And they did the same when she was scolded without acknowledging the amount she was harmed. So, being harmed, she concealed her face in the sun warmed hedge and she smelled the flowers and the pain. Okay, because she doesn't want to show her face after being scolded by her teacher. Because even now, if a child is scolded by a teacher, it is a great humiliation for that kind, whether she is a boy or a girl, right? So she also, Kamala Das also, she just concealed her face. She just hides her face in the sun warmed hedge, and she smelled which smelled the flowers and the pain. The poet now associates flowers with pain. Though who is the flower here? Kamala Das with pain because she is deeply hurt by the comment passed by her blue frock teacher. Okay, so I think here Kamala Das has attempted to compare her childhood and the flower, which is very sensitive, and henceforth she presumably needs to convey this event which shook her guiltless childhood. And in the final stanza, we have the poet says that since she is grown up, the memory of that event has disappeared because that there is nothing, anything serious in her childhood to appreciate and crave for. She enjoys now found adult peace, for example, incidentally be saying over and over, no need to remember those days, right? She says in the last stanza. So her helplessness in failing to remember it is very noticeable. So the memory has not disappeared yet, very clear to her as she recalls very well everything of that day of her excursion, of her small trip with her kindergarten teacher and with her classmates. That's all for today. Hope you understood and enjoyed. Kamala Das is a very interesting poet, and she uses very simple language to write about or talk about her childhood experiences, and she also starts comparing her present life and her past life in the first poem, and in the next poem, the same poet doesn't want to recall the incident where she was getting scolded by her kindergarten teacher, the two she calls blue frocked lady. Okay, hope you enjoyed the poems. This is very interesting. Please, all of you should go through this poem. Okay, thank you. Do you have any doubts? You can ask me. No doubts. I know another half an hour break you have for lunch, and again the class starts at 2. Thank you. No doubts. Nostalgia, reminiscence. These are the, I think, dominating themes we can find in Kamala Das poetry. Thank you. That's all for today.